Well, thank you so much for being here. So happy to have my guest, Jazmine Rochelle. She's a mother, entrepreneur, speaker, and champion of women dedicated to building God's platforms by building the platforms of his people through creation, innovation, and inspiration. So let's just give it up for Jazmine Rochelle. Awesome. So I would like to also give you an opportunity in your own words to tell us who you are in your own words.
My phrase this season of my life has been, I'm simply a girl obeying God. I am a God's girl. I believe I'm one of his favorites. I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I'm a friend. I believe I'm every woman, literally. And so I believe that God has really given me a charge in this season to gather the girls, gather women, and to elevate them. And so that is what I am endeavoring to do every day.
Oh my God. That is so powerful. And I know, even when you hear your bio and you hear what you've done, or you step back, kind of have like an outer body experience, right? Looking at what God has allowed you to create, right? By his working through you. How do you ground yourself? How does that, align you even more with, wow, I'm just being obedient in this season?
There are two ways that I stay grounded. One is serving, and the other one is sowing. I believe in those principles wholeheartedly. A lot of the things that I do that relates to my business and what I do with women, I serve in those same capacities at my local church. I serve my family, I serve my friends. I've helped a lot of my friends start their businesses. I've helped a lot of my friends with their businesses. I really do believe in the principle of seed time and harvest time.
Yes.
So the ways that I stay grounded are by serving and sowing, and that's sowing my time, my tithe, and my talent.
Oh, that's awesome. There is such a big deal with what you said because, we can be, as humans, we can be very self-centered, just be totally into, I know you've heard that radio station, WIFMM, what's in it for me, right? WIIFM. And I have found that, sometimes for me, what has happened is I've endured something, or I've encountered something that has truly changed my perspective on, okay, why am I here? What does it really matter? And God, how are you using this?
Mhm.
It can't just be for this moment of, in that point, pain, right? That there's got to be something redemptive coming out of this.
Mhm.
And what is seen is, for me, it's helped me to see that, hey, this is a time for not only for you to get healed, but then also help others from the pain, right, that you endured. And so that's where, for me, where the seed time and harvest even comes in, that I have to give out of that. And that also has helped me to heal.
Absolutely. I can speak to that wholeheartedly. Earlier this year, I put on my first conference, but what a lot of people didn't know is that in the planning of that conference and even the duration of that conference, I was going through a divorce and a custody battle. So God called me to a work while I was what seemed like, one of the worst seasons of my life. And I'll say that a lot of times God calls us in those seasons because purpose is what will get you through. I think that if I had not been focused on purpose and focused on producing, I believe the last season of my life would have taken me out. So, in that place of me being in purpose, I also had to pour from a place where I felt like I was empty. And so that definitely resonates with me, in that a lot of times when you are healing and a lot of times when you are going through, God will push the envelope and ask you to pour in a season when you feel like you have nothing to pour. And just like the story in the Bible, every time my vats got low, I would dig in again and it would just overflow. overflow. So a lot of times we can't hold God to our human limitations, because although you may look at yourself and see yourself as empty, God looks at you and he sees you whole.
Wow, you said a lot. I mean, I'm serious because I
Yeah.
had the same story so far as I went through a divorce. And after being married for 18 years, it's a part of my story. And I have had two children out of that marriage. And two things I did not think was ever going to happen was A, for me to get divorced.
That part.
And right. And then B, for me to move from Greensboro, North Carolina. I wasn't born and raised there, but I went there to go to school. I'm a proud Aggie.
Okay. I have friends who are Aggies.
Yes, good. Right. They're awesome people.
Right.
But then I moved here to Charlotte, and I remember saying to myself, I would never leave Greensboro. And that was my church home, my, my school and friends and my church. And it was just my ground roots, right? And again, though, pouring out from that, like I loved how you said when your vats are empty and you just dig more, and how God pushes the envelope. I
Yeah,
mean,
he will push you beyond your own what you feel like you can do. And it's like every time I'm like, God, you want me to do what? Like
right.
I literally have nothing left, and every single time when I dug in the barrel, something came up. So
So would
he's
you consider, I'm sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I say he's just a good God. You
Yeah.
know, it's kind of the same principle of how he took 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread and fed thousands of people. You know, we
Right.
look at God and we say, Lord, this is all I have. And
Like
he
the
looked,
disciples did, right?
yeah, he was like, we have no clue. We look at God and say, hey, this is all I have. And then
Right.
God responds to us, that is all you need.
Oh my, and then the way, and I use that story because what I have found in that story is everything was in line. And if you
Mhm.
think about it, Jazmine, just like you were saying, yes, the divorce and the custody battle, and that's something I don't wish on my worst enemy. I do not.
Yeah.
But then from that on one side to now, you have put on your first conference, like you were saying, on another, and to not, people didn't know. And I would say, even with that, with the 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, you may have felt like things were in disarray, like in that story with the disciples, like, this is just 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. And they even said in the word, well, what is that among so many? Jesus
Mhm.
didn't even answer that. He just took it and then he gave them instruction on what to do.
Mhm.
And I say that to say, I believe the miracle happens when there's order. Even when calamity happens, but yet your vertical order is
Mhm.
in order and you're connected, and God gets the glory and he increases and maximizes beyond what you could ever imagine.
Absolutely.
So with that, with your conference, did you have a team that, just, I'm sure you did, undergird you and work with you? Was that your first time working with them too?
Oh yeah, the people that like literally my conference was an act of extreme obedience. I would be in prayer and the Lord would show me people and I would stop praying and text them or reach out to them on Instagram. Some of the
Mhm.
people that he instructed me to reach out to, I didn't have a personal relationship with them. I just was like, "Hey, I was in prayer, I'm putting on the conference and this is what I saw." And literally every person that I reached out to was like, "Wow, this is confirmation. I've been wanting to do something like this." One girl said that she had put me on her vision board for 2024. I had no clue. Although we went to college together, but she said, I put it on my vision board for 2024 to work with you. She was like, I thought it was going to be for graphics, but the Lord did it in a different way. And so my team, I didn't even share with them that I was going through a divorce and custody battle until the very end. And they were like, what? Like we had no clue. Because, some storms you have to just go through. And I wanted the focus to be on the main thing and not
Right.
on me. It
That's
wasn't
right.
whatever I had going on, God was going to take care of that, but we needed to take care of his business first.
That's
And
right.
so I kept that the main thing. And God just provided. Literally, like my goal was to have a certain amount of people. And most of the time when you're putting on events, you want to make sure that all expenses are covered. So I need
That's
a
right.
certain amount of people
That's
to
right.
make sure that all the expenses were covered. So I had a registration goal. I only got 60% of that registration goal. But with that 60%, it's back to those 2 fish and 5 loaves. That 60% over exceeded my budget. And so my first event that I ever put on, it was debt free, like it was done. And so from that, I have learned that God is the ultimate mathematician. He takes nothing and makes something out of it every single time.
Oh my God. You are blessing me in so many ways. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
but it's awesome. And what I want to ask you is with the Elevate Her conference,
Mhm.
where did Elevate Her come from? So did that originate from no, not from the conference. That was already here, right?
So before I got married, I started an organization called Bloom, which literally has the same mission. Of Elevate Her. And I was texting one of my friends and I said something about, I did hashtag Elevate Her, like in our text message. It was something like, okay, girl, like she
Right,
did something. I was like, period, elevate her. And she
right.
was like, you need to write that down. So I wrote it down. That was maybe like, I was still married. That was maybe like 2 years ago. And so
Mhm,
it just kept coming back to me,
mhm,
kept coming back to me, kept coming back to me.
mhm.
Um, and my pastor often says that vision is like a ball. You kick it
Right.
and it comes back. You kick it. And he
Mhm.
said, if you keep kicking it and it keeps coming back, then that's something you need to do. So I kept kicking it and it came coming back. And one day I was in prayer and the Lord was like, you need to do this, like make this a thing. And I know this was God because, and my friends hate when I say this because they're like, girl, that is not what you should be saying. But I do not like women's conferences. Let's be clear. Like, a lot of times I feel like we have these conferences and it's hyper emotionalized.
Yeah,
We get in there and we cry and we pour out on the altar,
right.
all to come back the next year and be crying about the same
The
thing.
same thing.
Like, I am not that girl.
Right.
Let's stop crying and let's
Yeah,
come up with a plan. And
yeah.
so when God wanted me to do a women's conference, I was like,
Oh,
don't even like women's conferences. Like,
right.
I know this is you because I don't, that ain't me.
You would never think that on your own, right? Exactly.
Oh, I'm like, no. I go to women's conferences and I support like my pastors and my friends, but that's not something like I'm not out here on Eventbrite looking for the next women's conference to go
Right.
to.
No, right.
So I just was like, God, I don't want to be doing all that crying and all of that. And the Lord was like, no. And so oftentimes you'll be agitated in the area that you're called to. Like I hated that we would go to these conferences and cry all day and just leave with nothing. And so my conference, we definitely had a spiritual aspect, but
Yeah.
mine was more about execution and strategy. Like
Yes.
if you didn't cry, by the time you left, you would have had some type of action or some
Right.
type of strategy so that by the time you come next year, you have something to tell us about
Yeah.
other than those same tears. And
Right.
so the
Good.
place of my aggravation is what the Lord called me to. So I curated an experience for women of faith in business where they could be elevated in their faith in their business. Um, I believe that as an entrepreneur, it's a faith move, period.
That's a
And so
walk with God. Yeah.
yeah. So there was no way that we could speak to business only without speaking to your faith. I believe that if we get your faith together,
Yeah.
then we can get in the face of God and he can give us strategy for our business and how he wants us to run it. I often say God is the CEO of my business. The
Yes.
CEO's job is to cast vision.
Right.
He's the CEO of my business. I'm the COO. I'm
That's
the
it.
chief operations. It is my job to take his vision
That's
and
right.
make sure that it's executed. So people ask
Absolutely.
me about my business all the time. I'm like, child, I just work here. God vision and I carry it out. It ain't even me. Like, I'm like, God, what you want done? That I'm gonna make sure it
I'm
happens.
gonna make sure it happens. That's it.
And with that mindset,
Yeah.
it really, it doesn't eradicate, but it lessens the spirit of fear that
Mhm.
we as entrepreneurs carry when it comes to doing new things or, actually executing. Because
Right.
if we walk into it with, this is not my vision, this is
Yes.
God's vision, that
Yes.
means that it is his responsibility to make whatever happens succeed. My job is to execute it, make sure that it's in operation and that it's working, but
Right.
it's his job to make sure that it is funded,
Right.
that it is
Mm.
successful. So as long as I do what I'm supposed to do, he needs to do what he's supposed to do.
Exactly. Oh my God. You were saying stuff. I said, "Ooh, Tanya, hold your mouth. Hold your mouth. Hold your mouth. Hold your mouth. Hold your mouth." That, oh, let me tell you, the thing that excites me the most is that it's operational. The COO, it's like operational obedience. Like you are walking out the instructions. And my daughter and I was taking her to school yesterday, and we were talking about devotional, and I said, well, where do you think that God showed mercy to the most? What story or character in the Bible? And she said Noah, real quickly. And I said, why did you say that? And she said, because God was about to destroy the earth, and he told him to build an ark. And I took it a step further, even just listening to what you were saying. God had the vision of what was about to take place. And he knew in the earth, he had all the resources that Noah needed to build something he's never seen before in his entire life.
Yeah.
There was never rain, there was never a boat. Like this is big deal stuff. But then God preserved his family. God preserved the earth because of his operational obedience.
Mhm.
And I think, that is just so huge when it comes to everything, but especially with entrepreneurship. And I like to say, with what I do is I help women with their life's work. I
Mhm.
help them create the successes that they desire, and
Mhm.
that earnest desire, not just, you hear about the bag or, I'm getting this and that's not what it's all about. I mean,
Right.
those things come, but you hit it on the head. Let's be obedient to the vision that he's put inside of us and shown us. And I marvel at, just how practically, practically, it wasn't just a fleeting thought in prayer. You stopped
Yeah,
and
like I stopped the prayer. The Lord said Tara. I still was like, hold on, Tara, who? Fletcher. Okay. I
right.
text Tara right then, and then I got back to prayer because I'm the type of person, baby. Here's the thing: there's a scripture, I think it's Romans 12. I don't know exactly what verse, but in the Message translation, it talks about hearing God and responding quickly.
Wait.
When you hear God and
Mhm.
respond quickly, it
Yeah.
leaves no room for your thoughts. Like if I would have waited to finish praying and meditated on, baby, I
Right.
probably would not have text Tara. He said, Tara, I got on my phone right then.
So
Because at that point that I send a text message, I'm out there now
you're out there.
there. So a lot of times we get set back because we hear God, but we don't respond quickly. I just believe that we're in a dispensation where God is looking for not only extreme obedience, but quick obedience. If he says it, just do it then. It lessens fear, it lessens procrastination,
Procrastination,
even if it's not doing it.
confusion.
Yeah, confusion, even if it's not doing the entire thing, but just making that first step as soon as you hear it. Even if it's like, you hear women's conferences, like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to be researching women's conferences. I'm going to be, just getting on that. Because the longer you wait, the longer it goes out. And my pastor said something, and it has been in my mind. Procrastination is slow disobedience.
Just drop the mic right there.
Yeah.
Ouch, ouch,
I
ouch.
said, he said, yeah, procrastination is slow disobedience.
Slow disobedience.
Because procrastination means you're in a state of non-action, which means you're not being obedient.
You're not being obedient.
Yeah, it's slow disobedience.
Slow. Now, on the opposite, what's extreme obedience? For those who don't know, how do you define extreme obedience? Procrastination is slow disobedience. What's extreme obedience?
Extreme obedience. Oftentimes, I grew up in church and they would pray, God bless the hearers and the doers of his word. It's simple. Hear and do.
Hear and do.
You need to be a hearer and a doer.
And a doer. Yeah.
Sometimes we just hear, and some of us are so full. We're so full of words, so full of prophecy, so full of things God wants us to produce. We're just full. We're just prophecy after prophecy. And then it's like, you're just full. You're full. And a lot of times we feel overweight. That's because you have to get that stuff out. Get it out. Get it out. And so in order for you to really align yourself with extreme obedience, you have to be a hearer and then a doer. You have to be both. Because a lot of times we just do without hearing. And then when it fails, we looking at God, and God's like, I ain't never tell you to do that.
See, right. That part. I did.
He doesn't. He was like, no, that's not something I told you to do. You did that on your own.
On your own.
So with that being said, you have to be it's in that order, a hearer and then a doer.
I love it. I love it. I could just go on this all day, but I'm gonna respect your time. So now you hit on it, places of aggravation, and then of course extreme obedience. So I want to ask you, with your platform and experience, what do you find that tugs on your heart the most, that leads you to action?
What tugs on my heart the most is believers who are called to do things, to produce things, but they either don't have the guidance, the resources, or the aesthetics. My pastor says something all the time, and I'm like, I feel the same way. She said it aggravates me when Kingdom, we always come in second place. She was like, I'm tired of seeing us come in second place. And so that is literally my life's mission, to build God's platform by building the platforms of his people. One of the things that a lot of us in Kingdom have issues with is adjusting. We feel like if we adjust a little bit, that's compromising. Or, if we, shift a little bit, even when it comes to how we look or how we dress or whatever, that's compromising. But I believe that, of course, we're in the world, not of the world. However, in order for you to be comparable in certain markets, in order for you to be able to get in the door in certain markets, in order for you to be able to get in the door to be a light in darkness, you have to adjust. You don't abandon, you adjust. Meaning you adjust to wherever it is that you need to be, but you never abandon your principles. Period. One of the things I know, I'm called to the marketplace. Marketplace has a certain look. When I step in the building, I don't look like Mother Jazz. I look like Jazmine, a businesswoman, a CEO. So with that being said, it hurts me when I see Kingdom people struggling because they are not adjusting, because they feel like they are compromising, when really you're called to be light in darkness, but you have to get in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of us are standing outside of the room. And that's what tugs on my heart the most. We're standing outside of the room that we're supposed to be a light in the darkness. When most of the time when you're in buildings, they have lights outside,
Right.
so you may be in a place where, you're called to be a light, but you can't even get in the room. You don't even look like the people in the
Don't even
room.
look like
You
me.
don't you
Right.
don't sound like the people in the room.
Right.
So that's
Exactly.
one of the things that tugs at me the most is seeing kingdom people who are supposed to be number one
Mhm.
constantly come in at number two.
Can you give an example of that? Either maybe a way that you found in your own life or an example of something that you've seen or experienced of kingdom people, business owners, what have you, standing outside the room when they should be inside?
Well, now hopefully I don't make the Saints mad, but I feel like I'm about to make the Saints mad. Growing up, I was the chubby girl, just like period, point blank.
Me
You know,
too. Me too.
I was the chubby girl, and I know that the Lord has called me to the area of ministry, marketplace,
Yeah.
media,
Yeah.
to be on certain media aspects. So I had to get my health together.
Mm. Isn't
I
that
had
good?
to start going to the gym. I had to start working out. I had to start changing my eating habits. I had a child, so my assignment shifted to being a mom. I
Yeah.
had to have my health intact. I have a 3-year-old son. If he
Mm.
wants to go play outside, I need to be able to fulfill that purpose of a mom.
Yeah.
And so, with that being
Good.
said, because of what I was called to, I had to adjust.
Mm. I
I
love
had to shift. A lot of us, we want the platforms, but we don't want to do what it takes to be on the platforms. Do I like going to the gym? Absolutely not. Do
Mm.
I like eating right? Absolutely not. I
Right.
love cakes. I love cake. I am a sweets girl.
Yeah.
However, but because of what I'm called to, I have
Mhm.
had to adjust so that when I walk in the room, I can be the light.
That's good. That's so good. That's so good. And I also believe too, what I'm also hearing you say is you are aware of the requirements and not only just aware here, right? You're doing it. You're making it a conviction of yours
Mhm.
instead of, oh, I gotta do this. No, I'm owning it because I'm owning who God has called me to be. And in this season, I love the way years ago, Sarah Jakes Roberts said this. She said she began to agree with God, agree with who he's called her to be.
Mm.
Because in our mind, we're definitely always either fighting or we can doubt it. But then when you agree, then you become in full alignment. And that is, I believe, also too a process as well. So you went into my question of what do you think most cripples the Christian businesswoman from being successful as a force in her own respective industry? And so can we say, like that is the answer?
Yeah. Adjusting to the climate.
Adjusting. Yeah.
Um, Not adjusting to the climate is like wearing a coat in the summertime.
Yeah.
A lot of us are, and we feel like, oh God, that's compromise. No. If the market that you're called to requires coats and you come in there with shorts on, you're not adjusting. We adjust to the climate all the time.
I love
Um,
that.
you never abandon your principles, you never abandon your mission, but what you can do is adjust. And so I think a lot of times what keeps us from moving forward or elevating is us not being flexible and adjusting. It doesn't even have to, it can be small things as if, wherever you're called to requires you to have a more extensive vocabulary. That means that you need to download the app on your phone that gives
Right.
you a word of the day.
Exactly.
Small things like that.
Right.
Studying to show yourself
Okay.
approved. If
Absolutely.
you're called to, I'll say, the gift of administration, say, you're called to administration, you
Mhm.
need to be figuring out what platforms, what apps are
Yeah.
people using so
Right.
that can be more efficient in the area that I'm called in. That is a minor adjustment. If you're still working, with pencil and paper, you need to learn how to adjust so
Yeah.
that you can be a light in a dark area. And light often leads, because there's no way that darkness can dwell in the place of a light. So if you're called to be a light, that means you're called to lead. So with that
That's
being
good.
said, you have to be the answer to people's problems, small stuff like that. Administration, knowing what platforms are trending, knowing ways that you can make whatever it is that you're doing better. If you're a teacher, be the best teacher. If
Right.
you're a secretary, be the best
Yes.
secretary. So
Exactly.
adjusting, just simply adjusting.
Also too, I think that what could fight the adjustment is confidence.
Absolutely.
And it can spread so quickly. Confidence in A, who you are, B, in the fact that you are settled in who God has called you to be, right? Because if you think about it, when God called Moses, he kept giving him all these excuses. Originally, he was supposed to go by himself. He was not supposed to have his brother with him. But God came in and said, okay, I'll give you Aaron, let him talk for you. But can you imagine the delay with that conversation, right? And it was truly at the root of it, it was Moses' lack of confidence. I also believe it was fear, of course, going back to a place where he had run away from, right? And I think a lot of times, I know what I've noticed with my clients, I have to make sure that we do the mind work so that you can adjust, so that you can see yourself as a leader in your industry, and not just in your industry, but a leader with the solution that you're offering.
Mhm.
Because people are gonna pick up what you put down. I mean, whether you say it out loud or not, people are gonna pick up, oh, you're not as confident in what you're saying right now, or maybe you need some help, or gosh, she's on it. I gotta get on board with what she's doing. People can pick that up.
Mhm.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, good. Well, listen, we want to know what is next for Jazmine Rochelle.
Oh, the next act of obedience. I am In the upcoming days, I'm going to be having a business boot camp really for the end of the year so that women, men, entrepreneurs can get ahead of the curve and plan for their next year. A
Yeah,
lot of times we start doing vision board parties for the year in January, and baby, you are already behind.
right.
You are
Absolutely.
already behind. So really writing the vision, making it plain and putting it strategy so that next year you get in place. And then of course, Tuesday, I'm having my first planning meeting for Elevate 2025. So we have our
Awesome.
boot camp, we have our Elevated Women Conference in 2025, and then our Elevated Women Network is a place where women are coming to be educated, empowered, inspired, and ultimately elevated in the areas of lifestyle, faith, and business.
I love it. I love it. Now, where can we find you, Jazmine? Where can we find you on your social media?
So on my social media, you can find me at Jazmine Rochelle on Facebook or X, also known as Twitter.
Right.
And then Instagram, that is the Jazmine Rochelle. And I spell my name Jazmine with a Z. Or you can see anything that I'm doing at JazmineRochelle.com.
Awesome. Great. Well, it's been so great to have you. I've
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it.
It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.